A C&P exam for back, which is one of the most commonly claimed disabilities that is service connected. And when I say back, I mean neck, middle, and lower, or cervical, thoracolumbar, and then lumbar. That's all this
You
sleep
with
stuff.
your fancy words.
So there's 3 rating schedules, and this is a different beast as well. Mental health has a general rating schedule for mental health, right? GERD has a rating schedule for GERD. Um, elbows has one for elbows. Back has 3 different schedules. Okay, the most common one, and I'm not saying this from data, but the most common one, probably like 95% of the time, is going to be range of motion. And so, what does that mean? How far can you bend forward? I can't bend forward right now, but bend backward, right? Side to side, and then rotation. And if you look at 38 CFR for back, if you Google back 38 CFR, you'll find a chart that shows the different measurements for range of motion. That's how back is probably going to be rated at, right? And it goes up to like 0, 10, 20, 40, and then there's a 50 plus up to 100 rating schedule. I can't remember off the top of my head. That's for range of motion. That's one way it's rated. The second way it's rated is off of incapacitating episodes, which is its own rating schedule for back. Um, so, what is an incapacitating episode? Hey, I'm on bed rest. I can't do anything. I am incapacitated. That, the VA is very good at using ambiguous language because incapacitating means different things depending on what we're talking about. But for the back, generally speaking, if you have IVDS, which is like invertebrate, whatever DS stands for, right? Disease, um, that might put you on bed rest. And there are episodes, so 4 to 5, incapacitating episodes per month, 50%, whatever that looks like. Spine frozen in an unfavorable position, 50%, whatever it is that looks like. So there's range of motion schedule, there's incapacitating episode schedule, then there's one at the bottom, which is its own beast, and we won't cover it right now, but it's arthritis. So you can have arthritis in your back. Now, why do you need to understand the 3 rating schedules? Okay, there's 2 answers. One, you don't really need to. You need to understand your evidence. At least I would make that argument because the VA is going to rate all 3. They are going to look at range of motion. They are going to ask you about incapacitating episodes, especially if you have evidence for bed rest. But let's say you're rated 40% for range of motion and 20% for incapacitating episodes. The VA is by default going to take the 40% for range of motion. They take the highest of the rating. So you don't really have to understand it. You have to understand your evidence. The second reason you need to understand is because for the back, if you are rated under incapacitating episodes, you are not able to claim secondary sciatic nerve damage, which is huge, right? And I don't think that's talked about that often. Everyone talks about, ooh, radiculopathy, you can claim sciatic nerve damage to your lower spine, right? Same thing up in your arms from your neck, which is true, except if you're rated under incapacitating episodes. Now that leads to the question, how do I know which one I'm rated at? Because the VA is just going to say 40%, right? That could be range of motion. It could be incapacitating
Mm-hmm.
episodes. No one knows. If that's you and you have your legs tingle, there's 1,000 needles, and you don't know what you are rated for, and you have symptoms of bed rest. If you don't have bed rest, you're obviously rated on range of motion. Okay. But if you do, what I would recommend is request your rating code sheet. That's another topic for another video on how to do that. But you just go to your regional office, request that. It's a relatively easy and fast process versus like your entire C file. If you just request your rating code sheet, pretty easy. Or you're smart and
Accredited
you
rep
use
can get it too.
if you're smart, you use the VSO because that's what we recommend, right? They also have that option, but that's how the back is rated. And the same thing for general C&P exam exists, right? You still need the in-service event and the current diagnosis, but for back, unlike mental health, the back can be seen, right, via X-ray, MRI, whatever. So it's a you don't have to tell the CMP examiner, ooh, I have a dislocated L4 or L5, which I know nothing about back diagnosis. I can tell you there's 100 of them. They're all the same. For VA rating purposes, they're all the same. You don't have to say that. You really need to say, or you need to demonstrate what that range of motion looks like. So for you, Jason, can you speak about range of motion? I definitely have my 2 cents, but I want to hear what you have to say about range of motion, not just range of motion in general, but specifically when you're at a CMP exam going through the range of motion portion of the
Right.
DBQ, and
Yeah.
what are some things you would tell veterans?
Right. Don't take pain pills before you show up.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, so one of the things that they'll say is, tell me when you feel pain. Right. Tell me when you, and I'll tell you that if you're going in for back, one, it's important to understand what Clay was saying about the rating schedules. Right. That's great information. Thanks for sharing that, Clay. And I agree with you that I think that the primary is the range of motion rating. Right. And what's interesting is that because there's also a rating schedule for arthritis, you could have a back condition on this one, and then you can have an arthritis one over here, which is also important. So anyway, when it comes to your back and you're going into these exams, they're going to ask you often if you feel any pain, or tell them when you feel the pain, and they'll do the flexation, exactly what you said, the lean forward, lean back, side to side, all that stuff. And we're so used to pushing through things. It's like, it's so ingrained into us. Even going into the exam, you're telling yourself, okay, I'm going to show them exactly. I'm just going to go like this because that's where it hurts. And then you get there and you're trying to touch your toes and you're grunting, trying to get through it to show them that you can do it for whatever, for some weird reason you think you're supposed to. Really kind of be in tune with yourself. Right? Don't take any pain meds for a couple days if you can, and get in there and just be in tune with yourself. And guess what? If it hurts just standing there, it hurts now. It hurts right now. It's just going to hurt worse the more that I lean forward. Right? For me, it kind of, I don't know, personally, when I lean forward, it's like it kind of just hurts the same until I get way down, and then it's not good. It's the leaning back part that's like, oh, I'm good. I'm good right here, right? Then what they'll do, and I know that you know this, Clay, because I believe you had mentioned it before. After you do, and they'll measure it and get all your things, and the rating schedule is super, super tight. You're not going to, for most of us are not going to walk away with huge percentages for your back condition. And you're going to think you should, which is funny because the VA isn't going off of what it thinks you should get. It has its own thing, and it is what it is. I mean, my back, and I would probably argue, for me personally, I probably should have been on the incapacitating episodes section for a while, because boy, I had some really bad ones where it was like, you had to brace your knees against the sink in order to bend over to brush your teeth. There was times where my knees would just give out and buckle and, fall, which is, that's incapacitating. It's like, look, I ain't doing nothing. But with the range of motion thing, you want to be as honest and real with where the pain is. Don't push through it and hurt yourself. You're not there trying to win a gold medal. Okay. Be honest, go through it. And I would say that one of the things that will happen is they're going to kind of check for any sort of nerve situations with you as well. They're going to push and prod on your back. And if it's a lower lumbar issue, they're going to push on lower lumbar areas where nerves come in and stuff to see if your knees buckle. And I'll tell you, they did that to me, and mine did. And that poor lady tried to catch me, and I'm like, I'm grabbing onto things as I'm falling over. I wasn't ready for it. Don't fight it. Yeah. Do not fight that. If your knees are starting to go, here we go, right? let it kind of be and see what happens with that. Because even if they don't give you that radiculopathy in that, it is going to be documented in your overall file, and you can always file for that later if they don't give it to you in that moment. For me personally, so the VA is supposed to, if they catch other things that are kind of attributed to that condition, and I don't, Clay's the one that's like the more reading the books guy. I I had to, I get it, but I don't. I just research it when I need it. So Clay probably knows off the top of his head, but there is a rule somewhere that the VA is supposed to, if they identify these things, they're supposed to kind of, I guess maybe it's not 100%, but if they do and they can and they should, sometimes they do add in these extra conditions, even if you didn't file for them. So, for example, me personally, I filed for a lower back condition, went in, got rated, came back, and they gave me a lower back condition plus radiculopathy left and right with a bilateral effect. So I was like, well, I didn't even, put in for those. That's awesome. Thank you. So sometimes the VA does right? And obviously, like you said at the beginning, Clay, there are times where, you're going to hear a bunch of bad things because they screwed up. Look, they are going to screw up. That's why there's all these other mechanisms on the backside. But in your C&P exam for back, specific to range of motion, be real, be honest. Don't take pain medications. Tell them when it does hurt. Don't push through it, right? I've heard horror stories, and I'm sure you have too, Clay,
Yeah.
of examiners that push down on your back as you're trying to kind of go like this. They're standing behind you and they push you down. That's never happened to me. I would be pissed.
Oh yeah.
If somebody does that to you, fall on the ground is what would be my suggestion, right? Don't let them injure you and injure your back worse because they're trying to push on you. Have you ever heard of anything like that, Clay?
I have actually. And in that instance, what I would recommend a veteran do, one,
Poke him in the eye.
I would be, that is, I'm not saying be hostile, but I would express saying, hey, don't do that. Like I am going down. This is as far as I can. Whenever I am feeling serious pain right now, do not put your hands on me. Immediately, like as I'm walking out of that office, I'm doing two things. One, I'm thinking about a 4138, which is a personal statement, and I'm going to upload that through Quick Submit or through my accredited rep if I'm using one. Just saying, this examiner put their hands on me during the range of motion test, and I am in extreme pain, whatever it is you want to say. The second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to call the company. If it's VES, I'm calling VES corporate, right? So it's two different avenues. One thing I do want to hit on, and I want to double down on how you explained range of motion because I completely agree. And to add to it, if I'm doing a range of motion test, right, and the majority of back claims are going to be 10 or 20%. That's just the majority of them. And for any veteran listening to this, if you have a 40% for a back condition, that is solid. Okay. Anything above a 40, it really gets into unfavorable position of the spine, meaning, you're near paralysis, you're edging paralysis, and obviously paralysis is 100% with SMCs and all that stuff. So if you're at 40% for a back condition, solid, right? So if you don't have a frozen spine, you're good. But the majority of ratings are going to be 10 and 20%. And what I would add to the range of motion discussion is I am like you, okay? Right now, sitting in this chair, I have lower back pain on my left side. I've always had it. It sucks. And if I were doing a test right now, the examiner says, hey, tell me about your back pain. I would just say, I have constant lower back pain. It's generally on the left side, but very, very close to my spine. And I would describe it as it exactly is, just like that. Then the range of motion test will start, right? I'll bend forward. And then once I start feeling pain, something I want to double down on is the examiner doesn't know when you're feeling pain. They can't read your mind. You have to express it, right? You either tell them. So I'm bending down. I would say, hey, I'm really starting, my pain is increasing. I can go down a little further. My pain is increasing, and once I hit my limit where I'm like, hey, this freaking hurts, right? I would recommend veterans change. I'm not saying lie. Do not lie, and shame on you if you do. But I would make it as visible and as easy for the examiner to be like, oh, there was a change in pain. Something happened whenever the veteran bent that far, and I would be verbal. I would do facial expressions. I'm not saying game the game, but if you don't express to the examiner when you feel pain, they don't know when you feel pain. Period. Okay, so if you bend all the way down and touch your toes, and you are holding back your tears, guess what? You have full range of motion, right? Because you didn't say anything. Now, full range of motion with pain is still 10% technically. But if you do that, you're going to get 10%, period. So I would really double down at being just transparent, I guess would be the best word. Be transparent with your examiner.
Right.
Do you want to add to that, or do
I
you want to
do.
transition to these? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. And it goes back to that whole, and look, we were both in the Marine Corps. Every branch has its thing. And I'm sure that there's some level of this in every branch. I know, right, that this stuff gets so embedded, and it's back here now, right?
Yeah.
Like, you need to not move. Stay still. Don't move. Fly on you, a bug, something crawling on you, you itch, but you're still, right? You're like a
Discipline.
damn
Yeah.
sniper, right? Don't move. Don't flinch. Don't twitch. Nothing, right? Okay, but it hurts. Suck it up, right? Don't move. Don't twitch, right? So it goes back to your point of you need to inform them somehow, right? Let your body talk as well, right?
Yeah.
Not just verbal, but let yourself have that, that little flinch, that twitch, when you get there. Now I just wanted to add that in there, that we're so used to this, push through it mentality, and not expressing it or showing it in any way, that it's weird that these things just kind of move on with us in life. And you wouldn't think it, but I mean, it's been ingrained. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a whole and get it. Look, I'm not bashing it. It was needed, right? You don't need somebody flinching around and flopping around if the enemy's right there, right? You need somebody to be calm. I get it. But you also need to understand that some of that stuff is now just kind of built in, and you need to kind of undo some of that.